In the space of 30 years, Dhaka's literally car-free streets have been transformed into congested roads, where brand-new Japanese cars and rusted Chinese and Russian buses challenge hand-painted rickshaws and their drivers, only partially allowed in main streets and during rush hours. Its neighborhoods, until then unfolding around the traditional center represented by mosque and bazaar, have lost these traditional reference points and opened up to the proliferation of shopping malls, attractive purchase and leisure resorts for an upcoming and aspiring middle class. And in the meantime, a new type of procession has started to rhythmically pour young women onto the streets, from the home to the garment factory and back.
The physical space. Spatial practice analyzes structural aspects of the city, as well as routines and everyday life. A sensibility of Dhaka's different urban settings and characteristic areas was obtained by making civil journeys at different times of the day and by all possible means of transport, but especially on foot. The repeated works and observations provided an increased knowledge of Dhaka's urban fabric that in turn allowed the comparison between them. This process, based on the consideration of social as well as physical features, led to the delineation of 6 major structural areas with pronounced identities.
The Old Town is delimited by the Bangladesh-China Friendship Bridge to the east, Lal Ba to the west, by Zahir Rahian Sharani Kamru Zaman Sharani roads to the north, and the river Bari Ganga to the south. 2 of present-day Dhaka's most vibrant poles for commerce, goods and public transport are located in the area. The port, Shadar Ghat, along with its surroundings, and Gulistan Bongo Bazaar. Each of them is famous for a peculiar handcraft. Traditional urban areas are from Motajil to the east up to Dhanmondi to the northwest, and passing by Ramna with Dhaka University campus and Paltan. Though Ramna Park and Dhanmondi Lake provide both areas with attractive open spaces, beloved gathering and leisure spaces used by many people beyond the local inhabitants. In the last 15 to 20 years, the development rush has affected Dhanmondi in particular. With the emergence of new schools, hospitals, cultural institutions, as well as small firms and boutiques, it has completely lost its character of a residential area, becoming more and more synonymous with cultural and leisure activities. Continuing eastwards along Nilkut Road and passing a security barrier, it is possible to reach the campus of Dhaka University, an Aryan green area in the southern part of Ramna, which was developed by the British with the initial aim of using it as an administrative center. Paltan is occupied by some of Dhaka's most politically relevant buildings, placed along and around Tokana Road. High and Supreme Court, Foreign Ministry, Press Club, Bangladesh Secretariat, General Post Office, as well as Party and bigger N.G. OS offices. New areas are Mohammadpur and Mirpur, Tajgaon and Mohikali, urbanized partly through the leasing of land to private developers since the 1960s, bear witness to these phenomena. Added to these is the satellite, Atara, conceived in 1965 in an effort to react to the congestion of inner urban areas by means of decentralization. The irregular and fragmentary development is mirrored by a very heterogeneous urban fabric, ranging from Atara and Mirpur's grid road network, that at some points loses ground to squatted areas, to Mohammadpur's mix of convoluted and regularly laid streets, from Rampura's wide empty spaces intercalated by dense urbanized areas with geometrical plots and road patterns, to Tajgaon's desolated industrial area in which only a part of the factories are in use. Although Gulshan has also experienced increasing infiltration of commercial and institutional functions along its main roads as well as, especially in Banani, within its residential quarters since the 1970s. A planned road network reminiscent of a grid and broad avenues separated by green strips contribute to an airy appearance that distinguishes it within Dhaka's dense urban fabric. Two roundabouts, the circles of Gulshan 1 and 2 with their respective bazaars, constitute commercial and logistic poles. To these should be added the big bazaar of Banani as well as Banani's road number 11, which in the last decade has been invaded by boutiques, beauty parlors, bakeries and confectionaries for an increasingly interested and exigent group of customers, among them many foreigners. At present, many are being increasingly occupied by restaurants and offices and surrounded by qualitative apartment buildings of recent development. Slums are understood in the original meaning of degraded urban fabric and structures that come to be occupied by lower income groups. And there are also squatter settlements, or spontaneous settlements on public land, for example along the railway track, on river and lake shores, on the pavement or beside construction sites, where construction workers temporarily settle and never leave. Informal dwellings, generally inner-urban, are occupied by urban poor who pay a rent to the plot owners. Fringes are within the DMDP or Rajuk plan, from which several thousands workers commute to Dhaka. Rural physical and social structures are still characteristic here. Two main features may be recognized in the areas. One is that they are very flat and therefore subjected to regular inundations. The other is the village's typical structure, consisting of a mosque and playground that represent the reference and confluence point for scattered households grouped around small courtyards. Architecturally, the houses are generally built in ephemeral materials. Often, the mosques represent the only structures made of brick. Lack of utility services, sanitation and roads as well as poor living conditions explain the commute to Dhaka in search of better earning opportunities.
In mental space, representations of space, the complex system of abstract and symbolic values related to Dhaka dwellers' representations of space is delved into. Based on the interviews with respondents, city can be described as follows. City is something else than home. City means social, cultural, political life, history, and memories. City means its infrastructure. City means a chance. City means inequality, exclusion, and injustice. City means buildings and congested streets. In this work, I was interested in part of her mentions about individuals' memories in the city. What significance should be awarded to an individual's memories within urban studies? Perhaps as much as these affect his or her own identification with the city. One century ago, Walter Benjamin inaugurated a discourse on the symbolic and even prophetic meaning of the city, interlacing concrete places of the Berlin of his childhood with his later development as an intellectual and planner. Everyday life memories became the filter for his reading of the contemporary city and the juxtaposition of the two cities. The past and the present one often revealed historical changes in a more direct, clear way than historical analysis. In Dhaka, memories of the past city appear to constitute an excuse for loving the present one despite its problems, or even to cover it in a nostalgic denial of the recent years' changes. Here are 10 mental maps. All interviewees were asked to draw a map of the places they had mentioned and of their everyday spaces. Mental maps are representations reflecting an affective, symbolic meaning of everyday spaces and can be used in order to analyze such meanings as well as the attributes that individuals give to space. Space is a matter of memory, of recollection of movements, and of things that have happened or have been lived, as well as of desire, of things that could happen and be lived. But social and the symbolic values and discourses are projected onto spaces too, rendering it into a representation. The mental maps reinforce the insight that spaces are remembered emotionally. The divergence between detached views of the city and personal views of each spaces has given reason to think of an urban attitude characterizing Dhaka dwellers irrespective of rural or urban origin, but not compromising their capacity to get involved with the city. Dwellers were able to comment on the city and recognize individual places of desire that make space personal, charging it with emotional and symbolic value. Social practice originates from history, that of peoples as well as of individuals. This is at present the field of a dominated and hence passively experienced spaces, whereby desire and imagination seek to change and appropriate it. The inspection of the social production of space or social practice showed different degrees of dynamism of space, which appeared to be related to religious transformations and proportional to the lack of space or to the necessity to enlarge available space. Domestic spaces of households with lower incomes were found to be peculiarly non-specialized, as a single living room can assume in turn the functions of bedroom, dining room, sitting room, study, workplace, or gathering point. The meaning of the term representational space became clear through the observation of transformations of everyday life space into sacred space through, for example, the burning of a stick of incense in front of icons or the orientation towards Mecca. In particular, the threshold was regarded with particular attention by virtue of its flowing delimitation of private and public space. Its permeability or penetrability is variable. Not the material presence of an entrance or door, but the activities being performed. Thus, temporal factors indicate whether to enter or stay back and thus differentiate private from public. Also, the idea of property may be flowing. Whenever they needed an object she didn't own, tools of everyday life like pots or buckets for washing up were shared within the community, although they were returned to the proprietors after use. It could be thus said that everyday life space becomes social space through the interaction of people who trust each other on the basis of mutual need. The observation of Janmastami Puja confirmed that rituals can play a particularly effective role as producers of space and thus have relevant implications for urban space, whereby the latter is not dynamic, but rather transformable.
kembali, alun